A struggling widower gave shelter to a girl abandoned by her parents, unaware she held the miracle he'd been praying for. The city beyond was a blur of water-streaked glass and dim streetlights, a place once full of life now reduced to crumbling buildings and empty streets. Jonah sat at his worn wooden table, staring at the small bowl of soup he had prepared for himself. He pushed it aside. Eating felt mechanical, like a task performed out of habit rather than hunger. Since Mara had died, everything had felt hollow. The silence in the house was deafening. The rooms that once echoed with laughter and warmth now held only memories. Jonah often wondered if the world outside his walls had moved on while he was frozen in grief. He rose and walked to the window, peering out at the rain-soaked street. Lightning split the sky in sudden bursts, illuminating broken signs and puddles reflecting the dim glow of faraway lights. He whispered a quiet prayer, not for himself, but for something he had lost long before the world seemed to lose its color. "Please," he said, voice barely audible over the storm, "give me a sign, something, anything." Jonah had always believed in small miracles, though they had been few and far between. His life had become a routine of tending to his small hydroponic garden, fixing old machines for neighbors, and trying to sleep through the memories that woke him every night. Today had been particularly lonely. He had walked through the empty streets, searching for scraps of conversation or a smile, but found only silence. The sudden knock on the door startled him. At first he thought it might be a branch blown by the wind. Then another knock, more insistent. Jonah's heart quickened. Visitors were rare, almost non-existent. He hesitated, unsure if he should open the door. The storm outside seemed to push something or someone toward him. He opened the door slowly. There, shivering and soaked to the bone, stood a young girl no older than 12. Her clothes were torn and her hair clung to her face in wet strands. She looked at him with wide, frightened eyes, and for a moment Jonah didn't speak. The storm outside roared and the girl stepped closer, her small frame trembling. "Please," she said, voice barely above a whisper. I don't have anywhere to go." Jonah's chest tightened. Something in her eyes, a mix of fear and hope, stirred a feeling he hadn't felt in years. He didn't ask who she was or why she was there. He simply stepped aside. "Come in," he said. The girl hesitated only a moment before slipping inside, leaving a trail of water across the worn floor. Jonah grabbed a towel from the nearby shelf and handed it to her. "Dry off. Sit by the fire. I'll get you some clothes." She took the towel, wrapping herself tightly in it. "Thank you," she whispered. Her voice was soft, but there was a quiet strength to it, as if she had survived more than any child should have. Jonah went to his small closet and pulled out an old, oversized sweater and some clean pants. They were worn, but they would fit her. He handed them over and she quickly changed, her movements careful and precise. "What's your name?" Jonah asked gently, not wanting to push too hard. "Lyra," she said. "Lyra," Jonah repeated, letting the name linger. There was something musical about it. "And your parents, where are they?" Her gaze dropped. I don't know. They left me." Her voice cracked slightly, but she quickly composed herself. "I stayed behind because I didn't want to go with the others." Jonah's heart ached. The thought of a child left alone in this city in this storm was unbearable. He had always imagined that if he ever had children, he would protect them no matter what. Now, fate seemed to have handed him one in need of protection. "You don't have to worry," he said, trying to keep his voice calm. "You can stay here for as long as you need." Lyra's eyes widened. "Really?" "Yes," Jonah replied. "Really." She smiled faintly, a small glimmer of warmth in a world that had been cold for both of them. For a moment the storm outside seemed to fade, replaced by the quiet comfort of the small home. Jonah led her to the table where a small fire burned in the fireplace. He handed her a bowl of soup, watching as she ate slowly, savoring each bite. It was strange, he thought, how quickly someone could bring life back into a home. He had not realized how empty his life had become until this small, abandoned girl entered it. As Lyra ate, she looked around the small house with curiosity. Her eyes lingered on the small hydroponic garden near the window where green shoots pushed upward through the nutrient-rich water. "You grow food here?" she asked, her voice tinged with wonder. "Yes," Jonah said. "It helps me survive, and it keeps me busy." "Can I help?" she asked. Jonah hesitated, then nodded. "If you want to." For the first time in years, Jonah felt a flicker of hope. Perhaps this was the sign he had prayed for, the miracle he had asked for in silence. Not a grand, world-changing event, but a small, human one. A chance to care for someone again, to have a purpose beyond surviving each day. The storm raged on outside, but inside, the house was warm and quiet. Jonah watched Lyra tend to the small garden, her hands gentle and careful. There was a rhythm to her movements, a natural grace that seemed almost extraordinary. He shook his head, dismissing the thought. Perhaps he was imagining things, letting his loneliness cloud his judgment. As night fell, Jonah prepared a small bed for Lyra in the spare room. She curled under the thin blanket, exhaustion finally overtaking her fear. Jonah stood in the doorway for a moment, watching her breathe steadily. The house felt alive in a way it had not for a long time. He whispered another quiet prayer, this one of gratitude. Not for himself, but for the chance to protect this child, to give her a home when the world had abandoned her. That night, Jonah slept fitfully, dreams filled with both memory and possibility. He dreamed of Mara's smile, of laughter in the rain, of a world where he could be needed again. And in the corner of his mind, a quiet thought persisted. Perhaps this child, abandoned and small, held something extraordinary, something that could change more than just their lives. He did not know it yet, but the miracle he had prayed for had arrived at his doorstep, soaked, shivering, and calling him home. Jonah Cade was already awake, as he often was, tending to his hydroponic garden. The green shoots swayed slightly as he adjusted the nutrient flow. The storm from the previous night had passed, leaving a crisp, clean smell in the air. Lyra stirred in the small bed he had made for her in the spare room. She had slept deeply, her small chest rising and falling in steady rhythm. Jonah watched her for a moment, a strange mixture of worry and admiration filling his chest. She was small, fragile, yet somehow strong. There was something about her that went beyond ordinary children. He could feel it, even if he didn't fully understand what it was. "Morning," Jonah said softly, entering the room with a bowl of fresh fruit. Lyra's eyes blinked open, sleepy but curious. "Morning," she replied, sitting up and rubbing her eyes. She reached for the fruit, smiling faintly as she bit into a sweet piece of melon. Jonah watched her carefully. "Do you sleep well?" he asked. Lyra nodded. "Better than I have in a long time." She paused, looking at him with a small frown. You were very kind last night." "You needed a place to stay," Jonah said, "and I needed someone to care for." He hesitated, unsure if he should say more. "Sometimes the world forgets us, Lyra, but maybe we can help each other." Lyra smiled faintly. "I like that." After breakfast, Jonah took her to the garden. He showed her how to adjust the water flow, trim dead leaves, and measure nutrients. Lyra listened carefully, her small hands gentle as she mimicked his movements. Jonah noticed how her touch seemed to breathe life into the plants. Leaves that had been slightly wilted perked up under her hands, their green color deepening. He frowned. "That's odd," he muttered under his breath. "What is?" Lyra asked, looking up at him. "These plants, they're thriving, even better than usual." He shook his head. "Maybe it's just the sunlight, maybe I'm imagining things." Lyra tilted her head, a small smile playing on her lips. "I think they like me," she said softly. Jonah laughed quietly, but his heart skipped a beat. He brushed the thought aside. Children often talked in strange ways. Maybe she was just trying to make him happy. The day went on with small routines. Jonah fixed old machinery for neighbors, and Lyra helped him carry tools, fetch water, or organize parts. Everywhere they went, people noticed the spark in her eyes, the gentle way she seemed to bring calm wherever she went. Jonah felt proud, though he did not fully understand why. It was during the afternoon that the first real sign of something unusual happened. Jonah was repairing an old water purifier on the roof of their building when Lyra came to help. A sudden gust of wind knocked the purifier slightly off balance and a pipe cracked. Water sprayed everywhere, soaking Jonah from head to toe. "Jonah!" Lyra cried, rushing forward. He laughed despite the cold water. "It's fine." "It's fine, really." He struggled to hold the pipe in place. Then something remarkable happened. The water that had sprayed across the roof seemed to stop midair, as if caught by an invisible hand. Slowly it gathered into neat streams, filling the broken pipe perfectly without Jonah touching it. He froze, staring at Lyra. What did you do?" he asked, his voice barely a whisper. Lyra looked equally startled. I don't know," she admitted. Her hands hovered over the pipe, trembling slightly. "I didn't mean to." Jonah's mind raced. He had always believed in small miracles, but this was something different. He realized then that Lyra might not be just an ordinary child. There was something unique about her, something powerful, though he had no idea what it was. For the next few days, Jonah observed her more closely. Small, unexplained events kept happening. Plants grew faster, broken electronics started working again, and even the small fire in the fireplace seemed to burn brighter when she sat nearby. Jonah tried to remain calm, telling himself it was coincidence. But deep down, he knew it was not. One evening, as they sat together by the fireplace, Lyra spoke quietly. "Jonah, sometimes I feel like I can make things better, like the world listens to me." Jonah looked at her, startled by the honesty in her words. "The world listens," he repeated. Lyra nodded. "I don't know why, I try not to, but things change when I touch them." She paused, frowning. "It's not magic, I think it's me." Jonah reached out and took her small hand in his. "Lyra, whatever this is, it's extraordinary, but you have to be careful. Not everyone will understand." Lyra looked down at their joined hands. "I don't want to hurt anyone," she said softly. "You won't," Jonah reassured her. "And you won't be alone, I promise." That night Jonah lay awake in his bed, thinking about the child who had entered his life so unexpectedly. He thought about the storm, the rain, and the quiet desperation that had filled his home before Lyra arrived. Now, everything felt different. The house felt alive, filled with energy he could not explain. He also realized that their world, broken and weary, might have a chance for something new. If Lyra was truly special, if she could help heal even a small part of it, then perhaps the miracle he had prayed for was not just for him. It was for all of humanity. The following morning, Jonah decided to test her abilities carefully. They returned to the garden, where several plants had been struggling to survive. He guided her to one with drooping leaves and asked her to try what she had done with the pipe. Lyra hesitated, then placed her hands gently over the plant. Nothing seemed to happen at first. Jonah held his breath, not wanting to interfere. Slowly, the leaves lifted, the plant straightened, and tiny buds began to bloom along its stems. Jonah gasped. That's amazing," he said, voice trembling. "Lyra, you really can make things better." Lyra smiled faintly, her small shoulders relaxing. "I didn't know I could do that," she admitted. "It just happened." Jonah knelt beside her, placing a hand on her shoulder. "This is incredible, but we have to be careful. People might want to take you, to use you for things you don't want." Lyra looked worried. "Take me?" "Yes," Jonah said softly. "Some will see your gift as a tool, not as a child, but I will protect you, I promise." Lyra leaned against him, feeling safe for the first time in a long while. Jonah felt a warmth in his chest, a combination of fear, pride, and hope. Somehow, they would face whatever came together. Over the next week, their routine settled into a comforting rhythm. Lyra learned to help more with the garden. Jonah taught her basic survival skills, and they shared stories from their lives. Jonah learned about her fears, her dreams, and the small joys she had found in a world that had been unkind to her. And every day, Jonah noticed small miracles. Broken gadgets started working when Lyra touched them. Wilted plants revived under her care. Even the mood in the house seemed lighter, warmer, more alive. Jonah realized that she was not just a child. She was a beacon of hope, a reminder that life could thrive even in the darkest times. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in shades of orange and pink, Jonah stood by the window and watched Lyra play with a small drone he had repaired for her. She laughed, her voice pure and bright, a sound he had long thought lost to him. And for the first time in years, Jonah allowed himself to hope, not just for survival, but for a future filled with possibility. He didn't know what the world would demand of her, or how her gift would change everything. But he knew one thing with certainty: he would not let her face it alone. Whatever miracles lay ahead, they would face them together. And deep in his heart, Jonah Cade understood that perhaps, just perhaps, the answer to his prayers had finally arrived, carried in the small hands of a girl who had no idea how extraordinary she truly was. The city beyond Jonah Cade's small home had begun to stir with cautious life. Some streets were still cracked and empty, but here and there, people moved with purpose, carrying water, repairing buildings, and tending small gardens of their own. Jonah had always preferred the quiet, but now, with Lyra by his side, he noticed the world differently. The city no longer felt empty. It felt fragile, full of stories waiting to be written. Lyra had grown more comfortable in the small house, exploring every corner, helping Jonah with the hydroponic garden, and even repairing small machines with surprising skill. Jonah marveled at her intelligence and patience, but he remained cautious. Her abilities, though subtle at first, were becoming harder to ignore. The small miracles, reviving plants, repairing broken machines, even calming frightened animals, were now noticeable to him every day. One morning, as they worked together in the garden, Jonah noticed the faint hum of a drone in the distance. He frowned. Drones were not uncommon in the city, used by the authorities and private organizations to survey the streets. But this one hovered differently, careful, almost curious. "Lyra," he said quietly, "stay inside for a moment." Lyra looked up, puzzled. "Why?" "Just trust me." Jonah's voice held a seriousness that made her nod. She ducked into the small house, peeking through the window as Jonah stepped outside. The drone moved closer, scanning the building, its mechanical eyes focused on something, or someone. Jonah's heart sank. The world was beginning to notice Lyra. He waited until the drone passed, then returned inside. "Lyra," he said, sitting her down, "we need to talk." Her small face grew serious. "Is it about the drone?" "Yes," Jonah replied. "People are watching. Some will be curious, some might want to take you. You have to understand, not everyone will see your gift as a good thing." Lyra's eyes widened, fear flickering across her face. "Take me?" Jonah reached out and took her hand. "I won't let that happen. We'll be careful, but we can't hide forever. We need to learn how to use your gift and how to protect it." Over the next few days, Jonah and Lyra prepared. They reinforced the small home, patched windows, and organized supplies. Jonah also taught her strategies for staying safe, how to move quietly, notice danger, and think ahead. Lyra absorbed everything eagerly, her determination shining through. One afternoon, Jonah decided it was time to test her abilities in a controlled way. They went to a small, abandoned park on the edge of the city. The garden here had been neglected for years, trees half dead, grass brown, and flowers wilted. "Lyra," Jonah said, "try to help these plants like you did at home. I'll watch, but don't let anyone see us." Lyra hesitated, glancing around. "What if someone does see me?" "Then we'll deal with it," Jonah replied calmly. "But don't be afraid, you can do this." She took a deep breath and placed her hands gently over a small flower bed. Jonah watched in awe as the brown, wilted flowers began to straighten, their petals regaining color. A nearby tree, half dead for years, grew a few fresh leaves as if waking from a long sleep. Jonah could hardly believe his eyes. "It's incredible," he whispered. "Lyra, you're extraordinary." Lyra smiled faintly but seemed thoughtful. "I don't know why I can do this," she admitted. "It's like the plants, they listen to me." Jonah nodded. "Whatever it is, we need to understand it, and we need to protect it." As they worked, a sudden noise broke the quiet. Footsteps. Heavy, purposeful footsteps approaching. Jonah's heart raced. He looked up to see two people emerging from the shadows, a man and a woman wearing the uniforms of the city authorities. They paused, noticing the plants already vibrant and alive. Jonah stepped in front of Lyra. "Stay behind me," he whispered. The man spoke first. "What's going on here? These plants, they're thriving in a place that hasn't been touched in years. Who's responsible?" Jonah took a deep breath. It's just some gardening I've been doing." He tried to sound calm, but his voice wavered slightly. The woman's eyes narrowed. "This is unusual. The city has records. No one should be able to revive plants this quickly. We'll need to report this." Lyra stepped forward, her small hand lifting slightly. Without thinking, she touched the soil again. Immediately, the plants around her seemed to shimmer, growing brighter, greener, and fuller. Jonah watched in awe and fear. The authorities' mouths opened in surprise. Did you see that?" the man whispered. Jonah quickly pulled Lyra back behind him. She's just a child," he said firmly. "There's nothing more to it." The woman hesitated, then nodded slowly. "We'll be watching," she said, voice sharp. "If this continues, the city will take action." Jonah's stomach sank. "Action?" he asked cautiously. The man did not answer, and without another word they turned and walked away. The moment passed, but the tension lingered. Jonah looked at Lyra, concern etched on his face. "We have to be careful," he said softly. "They know something unusual is happening. We can't risk drawing more attention." Lyra nodded, her small hand gripping his arm. "I understand," she said quietly. That evening, as they returned home, Jonah realized that protecting Lyra would be harder than he had imagined. The world was watching, curious, cautious, and perhaps even fearful. But he also felt a surge of determination. Whatever challenges came, they would face them together. In the days that followed, Jonah continued to teach Lyra not only survival skills, but also patience and control. He encouraged her to practice her abilities in private, to understand the limits and possibilities of her gift. Lyra learned quickly, her confidence growing alongside her powers. One evening, as the sun set and painted the sky in shades of gold and pink, Jonah and Lyra sat on the roof of their small home. The city stretched out below them, quiet but alive, a mix of hope and hardship. "Do you think people will ever understand?" Lyra asked softly. Jonah considered this carefully. "Some will," he said finally. "Some will see the good in you, others may not, but you're not alone. We'll face them together and we'll show them what's possible when humans work with what we have, instead of letting fear control us." Lyra smiled, leaning against his shoulder. "I like that," she said. "I think I can help people, really help them." Jonah felt a surge of pride. Here was a child, small and abandoned, who had the potential to change the world. And here he was, given the chance to guide her, to protect her, and to witness something truly extraordinary. The next morning brought a new challenge. Jonah had received a message from a wandering scientist named Dr. Emery, someone he had helped in the past with repairs and small inventions. The message was short but urgent. "Jonah, there is a child with abilities beyond any record. Your description matches her. We must meet. Time is short." Jonah read the message to Lyra, watching her reaction. Her eyes widened in curiosity and fear. Who is he?" she asked. "He's a scientist," Jonah explained. "Someone who studies unusual abilities. He might be able to help us understand what you can do." Lyra hesitated. "And what if he doesn't like me?" Jonah smiled gently. "Then we'll leave. But I think he will. He's been studying people like you for a long time, and Maybe he can help us make sure your gift is used for good." That afternoon, they left the city for the first time, heading toward the outskirts where Dr. Emery had requested they meet. The journey was careful, quiet, and cautious. Jonah kept Lyra close, alert to every sound, every movement. The world outside their home was bigger, wilder, and more dangerous, but it was also full of possibilities. Along the way, Lyra continued to display small, incredible abilities. A dry riverbed they crossed suddenly began to trickle with clear water as she touched the stones. A patch of scorched grass beside the path slowly revived under her careful hands. Jonah could not stop staring. The girl was not just extraordinary, she was miraculous. As night fell and they camped beneath the stars, Jonah knew one thing for certain: the real test had begun. Humanity was watching. The world was fragile, and Lyra's gift was no longer a secret. But Jonah also knew that together, they could face whatever challenges lay ahead. He looked at her sleeping face, small and peaceful beneath the blanket, and whispered softly into the night, "We'll protect you. Whatever it takes, Lyra, will face it together." And somewhere deep in the city, the faint hum of drones continued, a reminder that their journey was only beginning. The sun had barely risen when Jonah Cade and Lyra approached the small, abandoned warehouse on the outskirts of the city. The place was quiet, its walls weathered by time and neglect. This was where Dr. Emery had asked to meet them, a scientist reputed for studying unusual human abilities, and perhaps for understanding the true nature of Lyra's gift. Jonah kept a hand gently on Lyra's shoulder as they entered the building. Inside, dust motes floated in the morning light, and the faint smell of oil and metal lingered. In the far corner, a man with graying hair and sharp eyes looked up from a table covered in notebooks and strange devices. "You must be Jonah," the man said, his voice calm but authoritative. "And you are Lyra." Lyra nodded quietly, hiding slightly behind Jonah. The scientist smiled faintly. "I've read your message. You have something extraordinary, Lyra, something the world needs to understand." Jonah's stomach tightened. "That's why we came," he said carefully. "But we need to be cautious. People are already watching her." "If they discover what she can do," Dr. Emery nodded. "I understand and will work carefully, but we cannot ignore the urgency. Your abilities, Lyra, are not just rare, they could help millions, but they also make you a target." Lyra's eyes widened. "A target?" "Yes, Doctor," Emery said. "Some people will see your gift as a resource, not as a blessing. They might want to take you to control what you can do. That is why understanding and control are essential." Jonah took a deep breath, glancing at Lyra. She nodded slightly, a small determination shining in her eyes. Jonah's chest tightened. She was brave, but she was still a child. And yet he knew they had no choice. As the scientist began explaining her abilities, there was a sudden noise outside, sharp, mechanical, and unmistakable. Drones. Multiple drones hovered around the warehouse, their sensors scanning the area. Jonah's eyes narrowed. Their presence had been inevitable. Now the test had begun. "They found us," Jonah said, tension in his voice. "We need to move quickly." Dr. Emery gestured toward a side exit. "There's a tunnel leading to the old sewer system beneath the city. It's long, but it will keep you hidden." Jonah nodded and turned to Lyra. "Stay close to me no matter what, understand?" Lyra's small hands gripped his tightly. "I understand." They moved swiftly, Jonah leading the way through the dim corridor. The faint sound of drone rotors followed them, growing louder. Jonah's mind raced. He could not fight them directly, not with weapons, not with force. But he could think, plan, and use the environment to their advantage. The tunnel narrowed at one point, forcing them to crawl. Jonah paused to catch his breath, then whispered to Lyra, "Do you think you can help me slow them down?" Lyra tilted her head, uncertain. "How?" "Just do what you did with the plants," Jonah said. "Anything you can do to confuse or stop them." Lyra nodded, hands hovering over the metal walls of the tunnel. Slowly, Jonah felt a subtle vibration pass through the air. The drones above hesitated, their sensors flickering as if confused by something unseen. Jonah's heart leaped. Lyra was learning control. They continued through the tunnels, encountering minor obstacles, collapsed sections, debris, and sharp turns. Jonah used each challenge to his advantage, directing Lyra to manipulate the environment where she could. In one instance, a section of fallen bricks blocked the path of two drones. Lyra's hands hovered over them and the bricks seemed to lift slightly, forming a barrier that forced the drones back. Jonah whispered in amazement, "You're incredible, Lyra, but remember, stay calm. Don't overextend yourself." Lyra nodded, though her focus never wavered. They moved like shadows through the maze of tunnels, the hum of drones still chasing them above. After what felt like hours, they emerged into a hidden courtyard behind an old community center. The city stretched out before them, quiet and seemingly unaware of the pursuit. Jonah crouched, surveying the area. "We're not safe yet," he said. "They'll be searching. We need a plan." Dr. Emery joined them, his eyes sharp. "We can't fight them head-on, but we can outsmart them. The city's surveillance AI relies on predictable patterns. If we can disrupt those patterns, we can buy time." Jonah nodded, determination hardening his features. "I have an idea," he said. "Follow my lead." Over the next hour, Jonah and Dr. Emery worked to create distractions using old machines, signal jammers, and Lyra's abilities. Lyra hovered her hands over small plants in the courtyard. Instantly, the vines twisted and grew rapidly, creating a natural barricade. Metal scraps and old furniture moved in subtle ways, confusing the drone's sensors. Jonah watched, proud and relieved. She was not just helping, she was thriving under pressure. The drones struggled, their sensors unable to differentiate reality from the subtle manipulations Lyra created. Jonah's plan worked. The machines were slowed, confused, and eventually, many retreated to regroup. But then Jonah saw something that made his blood run cold. A larger, more advanced drone hovered at the edge of the courtyard, its sensors sharper, its programming more aggressive. Jonah realized they were running out of time. "Lyra," he said firmly, "I need you to trust me completely. You have to focus on the vines and the walls. I'll lead us to safety." Lyra nodded, determination in her eyes. She concentrated, and the plants and debris shifted subtly, creating a maze for the drone. Jonah led her along a narrow path, ducking behind walls and using the environment as cover. The drone's sensors flared repeatedly, struggling to adapt. Finally, they reached a narrow alley that led to an old bridge over a river. Jonah's mind raced. He knew that the drone could follow them and they could not outrun it. He looked at Lyra. "Now," he whispered. Lyra placed her hands on the bridge supports. The old wood groaned and creaked. Slowly, the bridge seemed to strengthen, just enough to support them safely. Jonah grabbed her hand and they ran across. As they reached the other side, the bridge gave a loud creak behind them. The drone, caught in the confusion of the moving plants and shifting environment, hesitated. Jonah realized that their improvisation had bought them just enough time to escape. They stopped at the edge of the riverbank, breathing heavily. Lyra leaned against Jonah, exhausted but smiling faintly. "Did we do it?" she asked. Jonah nodded, placing a protective arm around her. "For now, but this is just the beginning. People will continue to watch. The world may not understand your gift yet, but I promise, I'll do everything I can to protect you." Dr. Emery approached, placing a hand on Jonah's shoulder. "You have something rare here, not just Lyra's abilities, but the courage and ingenuity to protect her. Humanity needs both the gift and those who understand it. You are the first line of defense." Jonah looked at Lyra, then back at the city skyline. The night was calm now, the storm of pursuit momentarily passed, but he knew it would return. They had survived this test through strategy, courage, and the careful use of human intelligence combined with Lyra's gift. He whispered softly to Lyra, "You are extraordinary, but extraordinary people face extraordinary challenges. We'll face them together." Whatever comes, we'll never give up. Lyra's eyes shone with understanding. Together, she repeated. That night, as they settled in a hidden shelter, Jonah reflected on the day's events. The real danger was not just the drones or the authorities. It was the fear in the hearts of those who did not understand. But he also realized that humanity, clever and resourceful, could rise to challenges. And with Lyra's gift, they had a chance not just to survive but to change the world. He closed his eyes, feeling her small hand slip into his. And in the quiet of the night, Jonah Cade knew one truth. Protecting this child, nurturing her abilities, and facing the trials ahead was a test of courage, and he was ready to give everything for it. Because some miracles are worth more than comfort. Some battles cannot be fought alone, and some gifts, like Lyra's, could change everything if humanity had the courage to embrace them. The city was awake but restless, the streets alive with a mixture of curiosity and uncertainty. Rumors had spread quietly over the past days, stories of a child capable of reviving dying plants, repairing broken machines, and calming even the most dangerous situations without a weapon in hand. People whispered about her gift, unsure whether it was a blessing, a threat, or something entirely new. Jonah Cade stood on a small hill overlooking the city, his hand resting gently on Lyra's shoulder. The girl, now more confident and composed than ever, scanned the horizon. Her gift had grown stronger, and Jonah could feel the energy radiating from her in subtle waves. Plants nearby responded to her presence. Small animals approached without fear, and even the air seemed lighter. "We have to show them," Jonah said quietly. "People need to see what you can do safely, to understand, not to fear." Lyra nodded. "Are you sure? What if they don't like it?" "They will," Jonah replied firmly. "And even if some don't, at least we will have tried. Sometimes the world needs a reason to hope." Together, they descended toward the city center, where Dr. Emery had arranged a small demonstration. A crowd gathered, curious but cautious. Local authorities watched from a distance, skeptical yet intrigued. Jonah felt a mixture of anxiety and determination. This was the moment everything would change. Lyra stepped forward, her small hands hovering over a patch of barren earth in the center of the square. Jonah stayed beside her, ready to intervene if necessary, but he knew this was her moment. Slowly, she lowered her hands. The soil trembled slightly, and green shoots began to push upward. The crowd gasped as the small patch transformed into vibrant, flourishing plants within minutes. Jonah's heart swelled with pride. Lyra's gift was undeniable, but more than that, it was a symbol. A symbol of hope, resilience, and human ingenuity. A young boy in the crowd ran forward, pointing at a dying tree near the edge of the square. "Can she fix that?" he asked, wide-eyed. Lyra approached the tree, placing her hands gently on its bark. Slowly, the leaves regained color, the branches straightened, and buds began to bloom. The crowd erupted in applause, cheering not just for the miracle, but for the courage it represented. Jonah stepped forward, raising his hands to quiet the crowd. "Everyone," he said, voice strong and clear, "this girl has a gift, but it is not hers alone. It belongs to humanity, to everyone willing to care, protect, and use it wisely. This is a reminder that even in the darkest times we can create life, hope, and change." The crowd listened, captivated. Some were skeptical, but most were inspired. The fear that had shadowed Lyra's existence began to lift, replaced by curiosity and hope. Dr. Emery approached Jonah and Lyra, his expression proud. "You've done it," he said softly. "Not just the demonstration, but the courage to stand here together. Humanity has never had a clearer example of what we can accomplish when we work with our gifts rather than letting fear control us." Jonah nodded, glancing at Lyra. "We still have challenges ahead," he said. "But this is a start." For the first time in years, Jonah allowed himself to smile freely. The city no longer seemed broken, only waiting for someone to show the way forward. And Lyra was the spark that could ignite that change. As the days passed, word of Lyra's abilities spread further. Scientists, environmentalists, and local leaders came to witness her gifts. She worked carefully, under supervision, reviving contaminated water sources, helping struggling crops, and repairing damaged infrastructure. Each act of kindness, each small miracle inspired others to act, showing that human ingenuity combined with extraordinary talent could heal what had been broken. Jonah continued to stand by her side, not as a guardian alone, but as a mentor, guide, and father figure. He taught her not just how to use her abilities, but why it mattered to protect, to nurture, and to inspire. One afternoon, as they walked through a once-dying park, Jonah noticed small changes everywhere. Children were planting flowers under Lyra's guidance. Adults were repairing buildings that had long been abandoned. The air was fresher, the city quieter in a way that spoke of careful attention rather than neglect. Jonah realized something profound. Lyra's gift had not only revived plants and machines, it had revived people's hope. He knelt beside her as she tended to a struggling sapling. "Do you see?" he asked softly. "This is what your gift can do, not just grow plants but grow courage, patience, and hope in everyone who witnesses it." Lyra smiled, brushing dirt from her hands. "I think I understand now. It's not just about making things better, it's about showing people that they can be better too." Jonah nodded, feeling a warmth in his chest he hadn't known since Mara's passing. "Exactly. You've given me hope, Lyra. And now you're giving the world hope too." That night they returned to their small home, but it was no longer the quiet, lonely place it once was. People visited not to take, but to learn. Scientists collaborated, neighbors offered help, and the small garden that Jonah had tended alone now flourished under the care of many hands, guided by Lyra's gentle influence. As Jonah watched Lyra rest, he reflected on their journey. The world had tested them, through storms, through fear, and through those who did not understand. But they had faced it together, using intelligence, courage, and compassion. Humanity had been the backbone of their success, and Lyra's gift had been the spark. In the following weeks, the city slowly began to transform. Polluted rivers began to clear under Lyra's care. Crops that had failed for years grew strong and healthy. The people, inspired by what they had seen, began to act, not waiting for miracles but working alongside them. Jonah watched this transformation with quiet pride. The small actions of individuals, guided by hope, could change the world. One evening, as the sun set in brilliant hues of orange and gold, Jonah and Lyra stood together on a hill overlooking the city. The air was warm, filled with the scent of blooming flowers and fresh earth. Lyra turned to Jonah, her eyes shining with a mixture of pride and wonder. "Jonah," she said softly, "do you think this can really make a difference?" Jonah smiled, placing a protective hand on her shoulder. "I know it can, because we've seen it already. One small act of courage, one gift used wisely, it can inspire millions. And together we've done more than survive, we've given hope." Lyra leaned against him, and for a long moment they simply watched the city below. The once broken streets now held life, light, and promise. Jonah knew that challenges would come again. There would be setbacks, doubts, and fear. But he also knew that humanity, resilient and resourceful, could face them, and that with Lyra's gift, they had a chance to heal what had been lost. As the stars appeared in the night sky, Jonah whispered a quiet prayer, not for himself, but for the future. A future where gifts were used to build, not destroy, to heal, not harm, to inspire, not frighten. And in the quiet of the night, with Lyra safe at his side, Jonah Cade felt a peace he had not known in years. The world had tested them, and together they had prevailed. Humanity had shown its strength, resilience, and capacity for wonder. And Lyra, small, abandoned, extraordinary, had reminded them all that hope, when nurtured, could flourish in even the darkest soil. The dawn of a new day was here. The city, once tired and broken, now breathed with life and promise. And Jonah Cade, holding Lyra's hand, knew that whatever challenges came next, they would face them together, with courage, ingenuity, and hope. Because some miracles are rare, but when combined with humanity, they can change everything. And this was just the beginning.